What is up, Knife World? Alex here, bringing you another video. This one is on a Frank Fischer battle. So I've definitely had some opinions on the battle historically. However, I really couldn't shake getting another one when the opportunity popped up. I got this kind of in a trade with a new friend. We were just kind of kicking around different things, and he was looking to get out of a couple of things. I was looking to get into a couple of things, and it just kind of shook out this way. This battle has been videoed on YouTube a couple of times now, so there's a few different opinions of this knife and some other video formats of it. So I'm not going to get crazy with it just because I know there's a couple of other people who already have videos out, but I figured I'd give my take on it as well as kind of explain my opinions on the battle and specifically related to this battle. So this is a mini size, which I think is a 3.25 inch blade length. And so that is definitely on the smaller side. I think that this size battle and the extra large, like 4.125 inch blade are kind of the best choices. One thing that I had always criticized about the battle, with basically just my experience in it, is that the way that this handle is cut out, it's really easy to get like, when you're gripping it on the bigger size ones, your pinky basically lands right on the kind of where the handle cuts out right there. And that's not the most comfortable grip. On the mini size, you really get a good 3-finger grip, and then your pinky sits on the other side of it, at least for my like medium large hands. And so this actually is an unusually comfortable grip for the way that this knife is designed. And maybe that's just for how it fits in my hands. Other people with much bigger hands or maybe smaller hands, maybe you don't really feel that way. There are not very many minis out there. I think there's maybe less than 10 of them, and they're in different configurations. I think there's only 2 in a full dress frame lock. This is also my first frame lock battle. And this almost kind of looks like my old Fury in the flavor that it's set up in, with kind of the Sanmai blade and Mokutai on Mokutai on Mokutai on Mokutai everywhere. So maybe I'll put up a photo of that just so you can see it. I know I've showed it in a few others. So I guess we'll kind of start at the front here. I don't remember what the composition of the blade is. I think it is a CTS 204P blade, which is an Bowler M390 variant, is the core. I could be wrong on that, but that's definitely a favorite steel of mine just for how I use knives. I just particularly like that steel. It's got this very iconic battle blade shape, which has got this double tanto setup with this nice harpoon, nice big swedge all the way across. And this one he's got kind of finished in a satin finish, like that's what the core is finished as. And the centering on this is pretty good. I feel like it's pretty good on both sides. Obviously, it's a bit of a gamble. Makers don't always have the best way to tell how the centering is going to look before they start grinding, and so it's not perfectly centered, but I'm really happy with it. I think it really shows how the Sanmai looks. I'm happy with how it turned out. I've said that in my other videos for my dual Tanto style blades, which I still have my Robert Carter, which we'll do a little comparing to. It's a very usable blade shape in my opinion, maybe more so than people would initially think. But you kind of have 2 tips to open boxes from, which is primarily how I use knives, is opening boxes and packages and stuff like that. So if you're really hard using your knife and you're cutting rope all day, it's like you have a recurve, so at least here, so that's probably pretty easy to use. Yeah, I don't know what else people would really be dealing with that, but it's more usable than you would think. Your thumb kind of sits ergonomically in the harpoon. If you're really getting into the knife, I'm gonna be honest, like most of the time when I'm using the knife, it's probably more like this, and I'm just opening boxes, so it's like I'm not really in the knife grabbing it all the way like that, but it's pretty comfortable. Kind of continuing around here, you can see his signature pivot with the kind of multi-spoke style pivot, custom pivot. Nobody makes pivots like this other than kind of the Fischer clan, but Frank is probably the most well known for this. And he's got Mokutai pivot collars on it, which I'm a big pivot collars guy, and I think that his pivots are really complemented by having a pivot collar. So like I said, this is a Mokutai everywhere knife, and so it's Mokutai pivot collars. You can even see he's got a true Mokutai kind of inset to that pivot, which my understanding is that's kind of rare. Historically, he's used, I think, 4 alloy or some kind of zircutai, or, you know, pearl or other inlays, but there's not much of that. The other thing that's pretty interesting about this handle is that it's got the Fischer's signature orange peel eggshell finish on it, which is a very durable finish, as well as it hides fingerprints really well. And I am a huge fan of how that was done. I don't know that they've done this on any of the Fischers have done this on a full dress kind of Mokutai or other exotic material, but I really like the way it came out, and I'm a big fan of the durability side of that. It's personally just something that I really like. You can see this one also has these speed holes cut out, and they are chamfered minimally. Like, they don't look like they have big chamfers on them, but they're certainly smooth to the touch, and they kind of follow the flow of the knife. They look pretty good. You can see he's got the hardware on both sides of the knife, which I appreciate the symmetry. I do have some other knives here that kind of only have it on one side. This one has it on both. I'll show you this one here. I did end up picking up another Fury, and you can see this one has it on one side, not the other. I like the symmetrical look, but you know, maybe some people would prefer this side to be completely Mokutai and it just to be kind of hidden. I'm good with this. Continuing around here, you can see that beautiful Mokutai backspacer. I love his gear finish on that. I think it looks fantastic. I think it just really complements the knife, and it gives a little bit of traction here. I have no idea why you'd be kind of reverse holding your battle, but I suppose it gives a teeny tiny bit more traction in that grip. He's got this kind of a pencil clip. I can't remember if that's what they call it, but it's this very skinny clip, which is not what he does on all knives. This is kind of a different example of a clip type he uses, which you can see is a little bit thicker. The pencil clip is extremely usable. It functions so well in the pocket. It's really quite nice. And you can see he's got this kind of gill pattern cutout, which is a kind of a more modern way of doing the cutout on a lock bar. You can see Mr. Carter's doing that, and then let's see what the Fury is doing that. So that's not how all knives are made. Some of them are made with just one single cutout. Maybe I'll put a photo of it in it here. You can see kind of the alternative. And then you can see his pivots are kind of like that on both sides. So you got the Frank Fischer pivot and Mokutai collar. You can see his lock, his like kind of lock stop, or his blade stop there is very close to the edge. I'm certainly not worried about that failing or anything. It's kind of an interesting look. It does match pretty well. Something that's interesting about Frank, I was talking to the guy who traded me into this, and he had said some interesting things which I thought were true, and that I kind of wanted to kind of just say as I was thinking about it. Frank's knives kind of all have their own personality. It's not like an RJ Martin or another knife that they're all very consistent between them. Like if you pick up a Q36, it's not that his Q36s have no differences between them, but you really know what you're going to get between Q36s. The Fischer knives are not, or the Frank Fischer knives are not quite that way. Some of his knives are like big, thick, and chunky. That's kind of what my last battle was, and some of them are small and light. He's got like a dozen different sizes between like the mini, kind of the smaller one, the medium one, the larger one, or the extra larger one, as well as he's got different thicknesses of them in some of those different sizes. And like you can own several battles, and like I have, I know I'm not the only battle owner, and they all feel a little bit different. So that's kind of just something that's interesting, is like it's not really like you get one and you felt them all. This one in particular has a softer detent. He's got kind of his old flipper style. He's also done some new ones that kind of have like flat tops to it. I think like the Fury might be a good example of that. so you can see kind of the difference between them. This one sticks out a little bit further. I actually kind of like this. I don't know, it's not that the detent is better. In fact, I think the detent on the Fury is probably better than the detent on this one, but the way that a user would engage with it feels really nice. This one has good action. It's not like the fastest action, but it's very fidgety. The lock disengages very easily, which is great. I think that this is kind of a fantastic example of Frank's work. This was an auction piece in like 2017. So there's no more like this one. Like I said, there's one more in Mokutai, but I feel like it had a satin blade, not a Sanmai blade. I don't know, maybe I'll try and go find a photo of that one. I could be wrong on that. Maybe it had some kind of Damascus or something. But yeah, this is a fantastic example of his work. The lock bar pressure is really easy to use. I've talked about how I feel about this clip. He's kind of got the clip polished, whereas the knife is kind of in that eggshell. I have no idea what pattern this is of Mokutai. No idea whatsoever. And then the backspacer is polished, which looks fantastic. He's got the edges polished. It's a very smooth knife. Doesn't have a ton of traction to it. The orange peel, like eggshell finish, gives a little bit of traction, but not a ton. And a couple of things I wanted to point out about maybe something I have grown to appreciate with different makers. This knife has a couple of material defects, and I'm going to say that specifically they are material defects. They're not craftsmanship defects. So like if you look really closely, you can see like that little tiny, oh, sorry for bumping the camera. You can see that little tiny speck, and that is a void in the Mokutai. I guess when it was getting forged, maybe it had like an air bubble or some separation, and when it was getting grinded down, it exposed one of those voids. And I don't see this on other examples of the material, but I know it's a material thing. Like I can look at this one. This one's Zirkutai. This is not Mokutai, but this doesn't have that at all anywhere. I'll do a separate video on this, so I'm not going to go too crazy into it. The other thing is you can see it's got the same kind of material defects up by the on the inside of the scale, kind of towards this side. You can see just barely where the material kind of delaminated itself. And this has been, you can see right there, kind of towards the back, another section there, a little tiny section. I've never seen like that on other knives, but it's just the pieces of material he used. Now, I'm gonna guess that like maybe some makers, they are grinding their knife and they expose a piece of that, and they may just decide to scrap the scale or something. In this particular instance, I guess based on its location, that just wasn't a huge priority. It really doesn't bother me all that much. I guess if you were paying, you know, what these kinds of knives cost and you got material defects, like maybe you wouldn't feel that way. You know, it is what it is at this point. I mean, the knife is made. I guess you can decide whether that would bother you or not. I would get it, but it is what it is. On this particular knife, he did not do the engine turning on the inside. Like if you look through the speed hole, you can see there's just the other polished side of the Mokutai. It is finished inside. It's just not engine turned. Whereas like the typical Fischer thing to do, oh man, it's going to be tough to see that on the inside, is to engine turn. No idea how you're going to see that. You can kind of maybe see it on the inside there. Is to engine turn the insides or perlage it. It's kind of a watch finishing technique. On these exotic materials, it's not totally necessary, but it is amusing that it's on the Fury and not on the Battle. I'm going to put the Fury away for a second. So yeah, it's a fascinating knife. It's got some interesting material set up, both in like how he finished it and some just uniqueness of the materials by themselves. We've talked about the action. I'm not gonna lie, like I don't know why I wanted a Fury or a Battle back in the collection, but again, this one popped up. I just got interested in it, and I'm really enjoying it. I enjoy carrying it. It's very easy to carry. It's not intimidating. It's pretty light. So if you got shorts on or whatever, and you don't want a big heavy tank, in your pocket where you need a belt and stuff, it's like having a nice thin, easy to carry knife is not a bad thing. Obviously, I'm not hard using these if they get use at all. Like, you know, they open boxes and packages and stuff, but that's not much. Performance of the steel I expect to be superb if I have the core material right there. And I've really been enjoying this one. So just kind of going to do some comparisons since I've kind of got all of them next to each other. I had mentioned that I had owned another Fury before, and so I own both of these, and so they're very similar in size, but you can see the Fury handle shape is definitely a little bit different. I would say it's maybe a little bit more ergonomic, but just based on the size, they both kind of work. The other thing is, like, compared to the Fury, like, I feel like the design, the battles may be a little more design focused, whereas the Fury was supposed to be a little more like ergonomics focused. Because like when you look at this knife, even when it's closed, like the way that the blade follows the closed handle, it looks beautiful in both its closed configuration and its open configuration. And I really love the Fury. It's such an awesome knife, but I don't feel like it's got the same like appeal to it in the closed position. Again, like this knife is more ergonomic and there's got to be some trade-offs to it. But that's something that I've also come to really appreciate about the Battle. And again, the mini size is unusually ergonomic just based on how it sits in my hands. So it's just kind of fascinating. But you can see it's got the same kind of blade shape. He does these are both very similar. In fact, if they were both Mokutai or both Zirkutai, they'd be like a matching set, which is kind of funny. But yeah, that's fantastic. And then kind of looking at Rob Carter, it's again, he's got the, I think this was made solely by Rob Carter, and a way you could tell is by the pivots. This is kind of a custom pivot made by Rob. You can see he also does the inlay thing. I have a video on this one. So he's got a very similar look. I feel like the handle shape that he uses, I think this is maybe a little bit more similar to the Fury, and less similar to the Battle. I think it's more ergonomic. Both of these are more ergonomic naturally. But that's, again, just kind of comparing them all. The other thing is that you can get these from Rob for quite a bit cheaper than you'll be able to find some of the Fischer knives. So I guess if you kind of like that, but you want something that's maybe a little more economical, that would be something to look at. That being said, you know, it's hard finding battles. They don't come up very often. I'm going to say most of the battles kind of trade between the same, you know, dozen or so collectors, and then occasionally they'll go find a new owner or something. At least that's the way the market's been the last few years. I anticipate it being that way for a while. So, okay, I guess that's kind of all I had to say about this. I just kind of wanted to get this back out there and run through some of my thoughts on it. Like I said, it's a nice knife. I kind of enjoy having it back in the collection, so I do carry it quite a bit. So I guess let me know what you think about it. All right, have a good one, everybody.